All right, we know the drill. You ask me questions. I hate typing too much. Plus, I might be able to shame you personally in video form. Good times. If you got a question, could be about anything, and I mean that. And if I think it's fun and it could be a good video, we'll hit that shit here. So let's get it started. And we're starting easy this week with Michi saying, I thought you weren't reviewing USB mics anymore. And yeah, whether that's a joke or an actual shot, it's a fair point. But honestly, I am standing by that. But when I say USB mics, you know what I'm talking about, right? Still not going to review those microphones. And frankly, if any other companies want to step up the way Rode has over the past week, I will be ecstatic to review their mics, I promise. Next up, we have Adam Burkholder. On my latest video on the Rode X mics, he first said, the headphone cable dangling off the side of the dynamic mic just sucks. Between that and the spider shock mount, it looks like a big mess on camera. For a mic pushed as a streaming mic, it's not very camera friendly. Now, at this point, I explained that due to several reasons, I had to neglect cable management. And he responded with, I hate to be negative, but why didn't you do it? And then goes on to discuss how the aesthetic of the mic is more important. Thank you for your mostly meaningless word salad, Adam. Let me explain a few things, but first. Okay, first off, the time limit to get this video out before my Monday release was intense. And I'm sure, much to Rode's chagrin, I didn't manage the cables. It probably annoyed more than a few people. But while I do spend time on the aesthetic of microphones, I almost do it in a condescending manner, because in the end, it doesn't matter. Not a single person's going to watch your content for the aesthetic of your mic. And not a single person is going to click off your content for the aesthetic of your mic. This is silly. And that dumb idea is the same reason we're being pushed a bunch of audio equipment that looks the part, but sounds like crap. It's an idiotic argument, and it only comes across like you're bitter against a specific company. Now, if you did watch my video on the Rode mics and you weren't able to do the mental gymnastics to imagine how exactly these mics could be cable managed, let me do it for you. And moving on, this one comes from Randy Mahoney. And he wanted to know, how would you choose between the P8, that's the Zoom PodTrack P8, and the P4? Now, he likes everything about the P4, but might want a decent mixer to connect to P4 at a later date. Cool. Thanks, Randy. First off, if you're stuck on Zoom and you like all the things P4 or P8, well, it does kind of come down to money and use case. If you think at some point you are going to need everything that the P8 gives you, just buy the P8. No point in spending the extra money. That said, I don't know your use case too well. Not sure why you'd want to plug a P8 into a P4. Generally, I think that would go the other way around. That said, the P8 should probably suit you just fine for what it is without the help of the P4. But if you do need more usability that would require both, consider something like the L8 or the L12 from Zoom. Much higher learning curve, but with a ton more capabilities built into it and no plugging one into the other. Now, if you aren't stuck on Zoom products, and I mean no disrespect to Zoom with this statement, but outside of the P4, they're kind of getting outclassed heavily right now, especially in podcast mixers. Of course, you have the Rodecaster Pro 2 that still sits at the top, but then you've got the Tascam Mixcast 4, or even the original Rodecaster Pro, kind of cleaning the floor with the P8. Also, I do know that more podcast mixers are coming down the line soon, if you can hold on for a bit. There's still some very interesting prospects coming, and that's literally all I can say about that. Hopefully you find what you need here, and cheers. Thanks for the question. Next up is Flamers. They want to know, do you know what the hertz the P120 is raising on the high end, and how much dB? Great question, Flame. I'm going to call you that because it makes me less uncomfortable. Cool. All right. I get these questions a lot, so I figured I would crush this one out with a single answer. Gonna blow your mind here with what you need. This is the frequency response graph of the P120, and it tells you exactly what you need to know. Now, in case this all looks Greek to you, let me explain. From left to right is the range of frequencies that the mic serves up. Usually these graphs cover 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. You can see that line down the middle. That is considered 0 dB. Below that is a negative dB dip, and above that is an additive dB, meaning that if this line goes above 0 dB, it's adding dB to a specific frequency, and if it goes below, it's subtracting dB from that specific frequency. So with that in mind, you will see that the P120, the high-end boost starts around 3K and peaks around 9K with the 5 dB lift at that point. Now, hopefully with that knowledge, you're going to be able to answer this question yourself next time. By the way, if you want this graph for any mic, just search the mic name and frequency response, and it will pop up in images. Now, we do have time for a couple more. Let's go with the coolest name to ask a question. It's Ryan Equalizer. Gonna call you EQ for short, brother. And he said, I'm looking for the best sounding audio interface under $1,000. AudioFuse Studio versus the RME Babyface Pro FS. Which one is better sounding? And that is a great question, EQ. And honestly, if I were to let you listen to them both side by side, you'd probably not be able to tell which is which. Both very clean preamps, both phenomenal units. Again, though, both very different use cases. If you need more than 2 inputs, or at any point you might, that 18 in and 20 out AudioFuse is looking rather handy. But if you only need a single input or two, that Babyface is amazing. Also, it can come down to desk space as well. I mean, that Babyface is just so clean and small. But really, if the interface is meeting your needs, either one or two will make you happy for a very long time. Trust me, they're both fantastic. And finally, one last, this one comes from Stu Thomas, and he wants to know, and I'm paraphrasing here. He wants to buy the Rodecaster Pro 2, but needs to know if it will be decent for voice work, or should he go with a traditional setup? Thanks for that, Stu. I appreciate that question. And I can see a lot of people kind of getting turned around on this question, because a lot of people think in order to do voiceover, you need a specific setup and only that setup will work. But really, it comes down to EIN, and the EIN on the Rodecaster Pro 2 is actually pretty decent. The preamps are great, especially if you're rocking a condenser mic. Now, there might be a bit of noise on a dynamic like the SM7B, but if you aren't gaining the crap out of it and you're boosting it in post, you're going to be just fine. I've used the Rodecaster Pro 2 for a few gigs, and I've had no negative feedback on it. I would caution you in one way, though. Avoid baking in those inline effects for the VO work. Most producers just want your own raw audio. Don't go chewing up that pro audio with the stuff that can't be taken out again. You will end up redoing the audio and annoying the producers. So hope that helped. Cheers, Stu, and that's it. If you want to hear more and perhaps want your question answered, drop it below and we'll see what we can do.